The Astral Plane by Bernard de Montreal. I would like to talk to you a little bit about what esotericists call the astral plane. In order to throw some light on this conception and this place of experiences for a large number of people. The astral plane is a layer of energy that is part of the consciousness of all evolving beings who have passed the animal stage of evolution. This energy plane contains particular properties that give it the quality of representing in the world of consciousness a wide range of images created in experience by evolving beings. These infinite images are the basis with which these beings interpret the inverted world of matter. In this layer of consciousness, the relationship between light and the forces of gravity of the cosmos is totally suspended. So that the gravity that serves in the universe to keep the worlds together has no power. And this lack of gravity's power in the astral world or in what is called the astral plane, allows it to create or be recognized as a world of imagination where all possibilities exist and all realities are conditioned by the acquired experience. This energy plan is extremely important for evolution because it serves as a reserve for all forms of emotional and mental experiences gathered by a humanity that needs in its evolution all categories of experiences to explain to the human spirit, to the ego the symbolic values of its experience. The astral world is not a real world, but it is a world that contains within itself all the possibilities of reality. I explain. The possibilities of reality are the probabilities programmed in man's life plans in the future, as in the past, in order to allow him to interpret as best as possible the different aspects of his life, in relation to data that are imprinted on him in the unconscious mind, when he is in a state of sleep. This impression in the unconscious mind, when man is in a state of sleep, becomes alive during the day, when he uses his emotions and thoughts to create an imaginary world necessary for the psychological survival of his desires. The astral plane is a vast range of possibilities that contains all the possible and imaginable conditions that a man needs to eventually conquer the peaks far removed from the Mercurian consciousness. This Mercurian consciousness appears in our human system, when man has sufficiently developed his mental body, to be able to reconnect the natural intelligence of his animal consciousness, with the data of a higher evolution that are necessary for him to progress in the great schools of the cosmos, when he has finished his survival on the physical and material earth. The astral plane has a precise function in man, which is to give him the necessary food to determine in his sleep states the different applications of his daily life when he is awake. The astral plane is generally poorly conceived of by man, because man sees it only from the human point of view. However, the human point of view concerning this energy plane is a point of view that is already astralized. That is to say, the human point of view is already colored by the fact that man belongs to the astral and still lives at the level of the astral consciousness, both in awakening and in sleep. When man will have conquered the heights of Mercurian consciousness, he will understand that astral consciousness is no longer necessary. Because this consciousness contributes to the decrease of mental power in man and serves at a stage of his evolution that he is about to complete. One of the interesting aspects of astral consciousness in man is that this consciousness can serve both beings in dark regions, as well as beings in regions of light. This duality of the astral is at the root of the many psychological and philosophical problems that man lives. And it is only by destroying this duality that man can finally understand the infinity of universal thought and stop once and for all seeking any infinity within his spiritual experiences. The astral for man, especially the man who comes, is a world that will be meaningless, because this world will have ceased to be useful to the new man. The astral world will be meaningless because the perfect contemplation of the mental world, experienced by the new man, will allow him to proceed so quickly in or through the ways of light, that everything astral will represent for him an affection linking him to the involutionary past of his experience. The astral plane today is so full of beings of all kinds, forms of all kinds, and the energies manifested by these beings and forms are so contaminated by man's previous experience that the man of the future will no longer be able to use this material. This material will be recycled and any property it owns today will be reinvented, meaning new forms will be created with the energy of the memory of this material. The material organization of the astral plane is already being shaken in its foundations by the activities of some great souls who work on planes invisible and parallel to our material world. These great souls know the laws of the worlds and have studied for a great period of years the different modes of distribution, diffusion and recycling necessary for the termination of the purely planetary function of this layer of energy called the astral. One of the most curious aspects of astral consciousness is that in this world or plane, there are two forms of reality. A form that is good and a form that is bad. What is most extraordinary is that the bad forms of the astral plane are the good ones and the good forms of the astral plane are the bad ones. What I am telling you will surprise you and will surprise many people, I understand it, but watch this. Yes, there are some of you who have the ability to go astral. Do the following test. First go to the astral and then once you're experienced enough to stay there for a sufficient period of time, such as 25 or 30 minutes. Start shouting my name, so as I tell you, shout my name in the astral world with all your might, and you will see that the shout of my name on this plane will bring you directly and immediately into your material body. Why? Because in the astral a person who shouts my name consciously, automatically receives an impression in his mental body that forces him to return to the material body, in order to limit his experience and not hinder his evolution. Since man is multidimensional and man works on several planes at once, any man who on the material plane can control the energy of his supramental sound, can also on the other planes control the evolution of the beings that are there. And it is because of this situation of this power, if you will, that some men help in the evolution of humanity. When I talk about the astral plane, I mean a world that serves man. As long as man is a prisoner of the planetary gravity of the planet on which he evolves, but this world is no longer useful to man who is free of the planetary gravity on which he evolves. This means that any man who can generate in himself the energy of his supramental consciousness is capable at will of delaying the dynamic evolution of beings on the astral plane, in order to force them to cease all activities on this plane. And these beings with whom they work in this direction are automatically part of the same evolutionary group on the planet to which this man is attached. It is very important to understand the hidden aspects of astral evolution and not to confuse the astral experience people talk about with the dynamic experience of astral consciousness, so some people suffer unconsciously. Many people believe that the journey in the astral is a benefit for man. In a sense it is true, as long as man has an imagination and as long as he still uses his intelligence to cultivate the astral experience on a material level. But man does not yet understand, because this knowledge has not yet been revealed, that the astral plane is actually an ocean. An ocean that has the same cosmic function as the ocean can have on the material plane. However, the function of an ocean in the universe is to generate enough force on the plane where it is located to force all the cycles of evolution of that plane to return to it one day. The same is true for the astral. The astral is made in such a way that it forces people to return one day to an inferior consciousness without realizing it. Because all the currents of the astral, all the forms in the astral, whether good or bad, are directly affected by what we can call the forces of time. However, the forces of time are very powerful currents of energy that prevent man from entering the light and keep him trapped in his illusions. Notice that illusions are extremely important in the functioning of the universe, because they have the gravity to generate enough force on the lower planes to contain what you call human time. But when human time is destroyed, when the consciousness of man who has become supramental is no longer in time, all the forces of the astral become powerless and the gravity of this world ceases to be active or rather active within its mind. so that this man who has become free in time is liable to never return to the astral. That is, never to die a black death. All forms of immortality in the evolving worlds require that men be totally liberated from the currents of the astral. And as the forces you call, the forces of evil, work in the direction of domination, the astral world for these forces, is a world, or rather a warehouse, where they find all the matter necessary to delay the deadline, where man will enter the light, free of human psychological time and able with his own forces to fight the currents or forces that evolve in the astral world. It is obvious that the stakes for the astral world, seen from a cosmic point of view, are very vast and very great and of great importance for the involution or evolution of humanity. As men think, they have no support in their minds, to cease all links with this energy plan. They use this plan to make experiences from which they come out more or less advantageous depending on whether they think in one way or another. The astral experience for man was an important phase in his evolution because it allowed him to understand certain things about the nature of other worlds. But other worlds are not necessarily reality. These worlds are part of the material organization of all decadent energy in the universe created since the movement of Luciferic intelligences in absolute spaces. What man must understand is that the astral, although it is for him a source of experiences of great value, is also by the same token a source of enchainment that can easily reduce him to being a prisoner of time. Now, if man is to penetrate the light, if man is to be free, if man is to be able to use the energies of the soul and transmute the energy of the planes, according to whether he is to build or destroy, his mental understanding, that is, his pure understanding of the function of these planes becomes necessary. Some will say to me, but yes, we went into the astral, we made the journey of the soul, we had very important experiences, we saw beautiful things. I totally agree. This is not the point. The point lies in the fact that the astral world, the astral plane, the astral consciousness, whatever its virtue, whatever its value or importance in your personal life, represents on the cosmic plane, represents in relation to the great Mercurian schools, a point in the evolution of the cosmos where the useless mental matter was to be disposed. Now the astral plane, the astral world, give it the name you wish, is a world of rejection, is a world of imperfection, and even the most perfect things, the most perfect experiences you can find in this world, are part of the rejection, of the waste, which comes from the mental plane. This is a categorical statement I am making to you, and it is not to shake your confidence in your astral experiences of high spiritual values that I am telling you this. I'm just exposing the facts as they are. The astral world from the lowest to the highest represents the waste of the mental plane. Once you have understood this, you can submit again if you want to have another experience of this world. Come back to the astral plane, stay there for a long enough period of time and contemplate in this plane what is for you the highest in vibration. And at that moment, ask your mind to make you see the light of the east, and you will see that everything in the astral where you are will disappear and only this light of the east will remain before you. This means two things. This means that the astral plane, whether beautiful or not, represents a categorical dimension of reality, and that this categorical dimension of reality is subject to instant temporal stopping, as soon as it is confronted with the light of a superior mental category. The experience to be drawn here is the one that allows us to conceive once and for all that the astral world is a world that can be dominated by light, only when man is conscious of this law. And when man is conscious of this law, the power of the light that flows from his higher mind is so great that the astral world temporarily ceases to exist for him. And if he ceases this world to exist for him, he can cease for an entire humanity. It can cease for an entire race, for an entire planet, it can cease for an entire galaxy. And when this world ceases, the forces that use this world to delay man's evolution will no longer have any control over man. Because man himself will already be out of this plan. When I tell you in the seminars not to believe anything, it is here in a case where experience is inevitable, that we must have ourselves and understand what it means to believe nothing. Occultly speaking, not to believe anything means never to be affected emotionally, or mentally, by any form, whatever the form. Only when you are no longer affected by any form, will you be able to move with the greatest ease in the world into the mental world and recognize the most abusive aspects of all the lower worlds on human consciousness. And it is at that moment that you will understand why, all initiations that lead man to confront his inner reality, with his psychological reality, must impose on him the total experience of doubt and the total experience of psychic isolation, because it is only in this situation, under this condition, that man is able to get rid once and for all of the very powerful bonds that exist between the astral and him. When you see souls going here and there in the astral, what you see is only the memory of these souls, not the souls themselves. Because if you see the souls themselves, you would automatically be forced to penetrate their secret, because the souls have no barriers between them. They have no secrets between them. So if you are in the astral and the souls seem to pass and there seems to be an individuality and people talk to each other more or less, know one thing, that what you see are not the souls, what you see is the memory of the souls. When you really see a soul, you will be in that soul and that soul will be in you will be part of it, as it will be part of you. There will be no division, and that's the best way. It's the safest way to get each other if we're on one plan or if we're on another. It is so real what I am telling you, that if one soul did not have the power to be in another soul and vice versa, love would not exist in the world. Because love in the world comes from the fact that all souls are created of the same essence and share the same love. That is, all souls share the same bond. Unless they all share the same bond, it is obvious that if they meet, they must be totally in the same essence, in the same memory, in the same understanding, but man does not yet have the power to discern between the memory of the soul and the soul itself. And as the new man will have the power to use the energies of the soul and see the soul, it is obvious that any astral experience for him will be impossible. Because the soul cannot live from the astral atmosphere, it is obliged to substitute itself, and this substitution is its memory. There are constantly errors in Western and Eastern esotericism, because esotericism on planet Earth is a philosophy, an experimental philosophy. And all experimental philosophy comes from experience. However, the experience is not absolute, but always relative. Because every experience is made, lived within a form. Only when the being is in a totally free state of form, can he deal with the relativity of experiences and project them against a pre-experiential, pre-personal version of reality. As long as man must learn, he is subject to the laws of experience. As he is obliged to conform to the forms of this experience, his knowledge is not afflicted by it. That is why I often say that knowledge is an illusion. Not because knowledge is not good, but because knowledge is part of time, while knowingness is out of time. Knowingness does not belong to form, which is why man with his intellect cannot appropriate it. As much as knowledge is reducible, so much knowingness is irreducible. If knowingness wants to penetrate the mystery of mysteries, it has the free will to do so. Since knowingness is in itself, the mystery of knowledge, not in its manifestation, but in the origin of its manifestation. And it is at the origin of the manifestation of knowingness that we find all the different modes of evolution of knowledge. Knowledge is temporal, knowingness is eternal, there is no time, it is part of light. So remember that the astral plane, as long as you use it, is part of a personal experience. But it is not from this personal experience that you will be able to generate in yourself the necessary energy, the necessary light, to be in knowingness. This plan will always give you one more reason to experience it. This plan will always give you one more reason to know more about it. But it is not these aspects or experiences that will allow you to generate enough light on the material plane where you live to understand once and for all that there is nothing to understand. It is in knowingness that you will be able to realize that the worlds inferior to the soul are worlds, so the soul uses the soul for the evolution of the ego, that is, for the evolution of its memory, that is, for the dynamic understanding of the inferior worlds, to which it is only entitled through the experience of the ego. The soul is contemplative, it evolves, but it is contemplative, it does not seek to understand. The ego, on the other hand, is not contemplative, it is progressive, it must evolve, and its evolution serves the soul because the memory, which is the accumulation of all forms of experience, becomes a building material in the worlds of light. The experience becomes a building material for the evolving lower worlds. Apart from whatever your experience on the astral plane, these experiences will always be related to the waste emitted from the higher planes that use the experience of the ego to build more advanced, more perfect worlds. I have dedicated this instruction to some of you who are interested in occultism and who are interested in these experiences in the plane you call the astral plane, in order to give you other points of reference to which I will return later, as I progress with you in explaining the mysteries. So what you need to know about the astral is these 3 points. The astral is a world or plane that is the repository of all forms from the mental plane. Of those forms that are no longer used on the mental plane, because they are too imperfect. The astral is an imaginary and unreal version of the world of the soul, which allows man to have easier access to his imagination and material intelligence, to aspects of the invisible that temporarily serve as a refuge in his movement higher and further into evolution. So if you go into the astral and are given work plans, know one thing, that these work plans are also part of your astral experience. The plans are real, and your activities in relation to these plans will gradually allow you to develop some links with intelligences in these plans. But the links you have developed with these intelligences must one day cease, because these intelligences too will have been led to go beyond the functions of their duties to achieve the more perfect attributes of the Mercurian consciousness, which is also an evolution.